the 27th of July, 1944. Close to Saint-Dillegast in Normandy, France, an 88mm shell ripped through the Sherman's armor with a screech of tortured metal that should have meant instant demise for all 5 men inside. A gunner in a Panther from the 2nd SS Panzer Division, Das Reich, watched through his scope, anticipating the fiery inferno that invariably followed a successful hit. Target eliminated. The driver nudged the tank forward 20 meters for a clearer shot at a second adversary, but the anticipated flames never erupted. The Sherman's turret pivoted, its 76mm cannon swinging to face them, a harbinger of retribution. The German loader, mid-reach for another projectile, froze, bewildered. That American tank should have been a smoldering wreck by now. Every training manual, every battlefield lesson learned from Russia to Africa, every scrap of intelligence they possessed dictated it. What the Panther crew witnessed that morning was a paradigm shift in armored combat, a revolution the German forces had utterly failed to perceive. The M4A3E8 Sherman they had just engaged was fitted with an internal ammunition storage system, its protected bins cradling 38 gallons of fire-suppressing liquid, effectively nullifying the catastrophic ammunition fires German gunners had come to rely on since 1942. This enhancement, present in every Sherman tank manufactured after January 1944, slashed the likelihood of post-penetration fires from a staggering 60 to 80% down to a mere 10 to 15%. Across the Norman countryside that morning, the 2nd Armored Division was advancing with 104 of these upgraded Shermans. Not a single German intelligence report, no briefing from the Wehrmacht, not even the faintest whisper from the front lines had alerted German tank crews to the fact that their most fundamental assumption about American armor had become dangerously outdated. This profound transformation had its genesis in the ashes of disaster. The 14th of February 1943, Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. Burning American armor littered the valley floor. M4 Shermans reduced to crematoria by German 88mm cannons. Out of 300 American tanks committed, 183 were destroyed, the vast majority consumed by ammunition explosions that annihilated entire crews in mere seconds. British Operational Research Section documented that 65% of disabled Shermans were completely engulfed in flames. American studies revealed even grimmer statistics, with up to 80% succumbing to fire in certain engagements. The Ordnance Department's Tank Automotive Center meticulously analyzed every disabled Sherman recovered from North Africa. Their conclusion was stark and undeniable. It was the ammunition propellant, not the fuel, that was the primary cause of these fires. The 70-plus rounds stowed in open racks throughout the fighting compartment acted as instant incendiaries when struck by superheated fragments. The solution emerged through relentless iterative design. A chemical engineer from DuPont, attending a tank board meeting in November 1943, proposed encasing the ammunition in liquid. Initial concepts seemed outlandish, envisioning the entire fighting compartment flooded with water, creating submarine-like conditions. However, through sustained development, the idea evolved into an elegant and practical solution. Double-walled ammunition containers with liquid-filled interstitial spaces were positioned in the hull floor, away from likely points of impact. By December 1943, the Press Steel Car Company in Pennsylvania was retooling its production lines. The very first M4A1E8 Sherman rolled off the assembly line on the 3rd of January 1944. The W designation signified wet, though few outside the factory understood its profound implications. Testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground unequivocally validated the concept, exceeding all expectations. In controlled trials, technicians fired captured German 75mm and 88mm rounds at the ammunition bins. Dry storage detonated in 73% of impacts, while wet storage ignited in only 15% of cases. Film footage of these tests, classified until 1963, vividly illustrated the dramatic contrast. Dry ammunition erupting in towering columns of fire versus wet storage producing mere puffs of smoke, swiftly extinguished by the spreading suppressant. The modification was remarkably comprehensive. Each ammunition bin comprised concentric double-walled cells designed to hold 10 rounds, with a gap between the inner and outer shells filled with liquid. Initially, this was water, then a water glycol mixture, and finally, a specialized solution termed amudamp. The chemical composition was paramount. Pure water would freeze in winter. Glycol prevented freezing but induced corrosion. Amudamp, a formulation of ethyl sodium potassium phosphate, resolved both issues while simultaneously enhancing fire suppression capabilities. The M4A3E8 Sherman carried 100 rounds in its floor storage, plus 4 ready rounds, protected by a total of 37.1 gallons of suppressant. The 76mm variant stored 71 rounds with 36.6 gallons of protective liquid. This system added approximately 900 pounds to the tank's weight, but dramatically improved its survivability. By April 1944, 130 M4A1E8 Shermans had arrived in England. The 2nd and 3rd Armored Divisions each received 52 of these tanks, though their initial deployment was deferred. Concerns regarding training on the new 76mm gun and the logistics of ammunition supply kept them from participating in the D-Day landings. These enhanced Shermans would first see combat during Operation Cobra, commencing on the 25th of July, 1944. Operation Cobra kicked off at 9:38 hours on the 25th of July, 1944, preceded by the most extensive aerial bombardment in tactical support history. As the smoke cleared from the devastating carpet bombing, American armor surged forward through the breach near St. Lo. Leading elements included the 2nd and 3rd Armored Divisions, equipped with the inaugural wet-stowage Shermans to engage in combat in Europe. The Panzer Divisions, reeling from the bombardment, positioned their surviving Panthers in ambush sites. German after-action reports, later recovered when Panzer headquarters was overrun, reflected a growing bewilderment regarding the resilience of American tanks. Panthers were achieving penetrations on Shermans at advantageous ranges, yet many targets continued their fight or withdrew under their own power, rather than erupting in flames as expected. The German crews remained unaware that they had encountered M4A3E8 and M4A1E8 Shermans from the 67th and 33rd Armored Regiments. Of the tanks the German gunners believed destroyed, many would return to action within 48 hours following field repairs. Those that did burn had typically been struck in the engine compartment. The ammunition protection system had performed precisely as designed. German defensive positions, calculated based on anticipated American tank attrition, proved tragically inadequate when confronted with these protected vehicles. Shermans were surviving at unprecedented rates. Counterattacks launched under the assumption of weakened American spearheads met with far stronger resistance than anticipated. The engineering behind this system represented an exceptional feat of wartime innovation. Each storage bin comprised meticulously manufactured double-walled containers with a 1.5-inch gap between the inner and outer shells. These gaps held approximately half a gallon of liquid per 10-round cell. The development process had been remarkably swift by military standards. Initial water-only systems, tested in October 1943, confirmed the concept's viability, but exposed critical issues: freezing in cold weather, corrosion of brass cartridge cases, and the proliferation of bacteria in stagnant water. The addition of ethylene glycol mitigated freezing but exacerbated corrosion. The ultimate solution, amudamp, incorporated ethyl sodium potassium phosphate, along with rust inhibitors and biocides. This mixture remained liquid down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, prevented corrosion, inhibited bacterial growth, and actually improved fire suppression efficacy over pure water. Each tank necessitated an initial filling, followed by periodic checks of fluid levels via inspection ports. According to Ordnance Department records, the system's effectiveness surpassed all projections. When shell fragments penetrated a bin, the liquid would flood out, drenching any exposed propellant before it could ignite. Even if some propellant caught fire, the liquid effectively prevented its spread to adjacent rounds. Tanks transitioned from total losses to minor damage with this single, transformative modification. At the Kumdorf Proving Ground, German technical intelligence was analyzing captured American armor specimens from Tunisia, specifically from before the advent of wet stowage. Their evaluation focused on M4 A-1 tanks from the 1st Armored Division, captured at Gafsa in February 1943. German technical reports meticulously documented every facet of Sherman design, including armor composition, engine performance, transmission characteristics, and ammunition storage arrangements. Intelligence bulletins disseminated to panzer units featured detailed schematics of ammunition, rack placement within the sponsons, positioned above track level, along with recommendations to target these areas for maximum destructive effect. This intelligence, disseminated as doctrine to all panzer units, became standard practice for German tank crews. Gunnery schools, from Putlos to Paderborn, instructed students to aim for the Sherman sponsons. Range cards issued to anti-tank units highlighted these critical areas in red. The tactical doctrine was so deeply ingrained that even when hits to the sponsons ceased to produce fires, crews rationalized it as simply having missed the ammunition itself. The timing proved catastrophic for German forces. Their comprehensive Sherman analysis was concluded just as American factories began producing modified variants. Every subsequent intelligence update referenced the older evaluation as the definitive truth. When frontline units reported unusual Sherman survivability, staff officers dismissed these accounts as exaggerations born from combat stress. The transformation in American tank production in early 1944 represented an unprecedented level of industrial coordination in warfare. The Fisher Tank Arsenal in Grand Blanc, Michigan, transitioned from M4A2 to M4A3 production, subsequently incorporating the new modifications without halting the assembly line. Between February 1944 and March 1945, Fisher manufactured 3,753 M4A 3E8 Sherman tanks. Hull floors required a complete redesign to accommodate the ammunition bins situated beneath the turret basket. This necessitated new stamping dies, modified welding jigs, and altered assembly sequences. The partial turret basket, replacing the full rotating floor to allow hull ammunition access, required a redesign of the entire turret traverse mechanism. Hydraulic lines, electrical cables, and control linkages all needed rerouting around the new ammunition positions. The Press Steel Car Company in Pennsylvania achieved similar production milestones. Commencing M4A1E8 production in January 1944, they manufactured 3,426 units through July 1945. They had to integrate the new ammunition system with the installation of the 76mm gun, a larger weapon necessitating turret modifications, different ammunition, and a revised weight distribution. By June 1944, American factories were exclusively producing wet-stowage variants. The transition had been so seamless that German intelligence, still working from year-old captured specimens, remained entirely unaware of this fundamental change. The hedgerow terrain of Normandy inadvertently became a proving ground for the modification's effectiveness. The dense bocage forced combat at close ranges where German guns could easily penetrate Sherman armor. Yet, American tank losses proved surprisingly recoverable. Third Army's maintenance battalions reported recovering and repairing 67% of disabled Shermans during Operation Cobra. Of the tanks that would have been total fire losses with dry storage, approximately 70% returned to service thanks to the new protection. This invisible amplification of American tank strength confounded German planning at every echelon. German commanders expressed frustration in their war diaries about American tanks seemingly possessing inexhaustible reserves. Panthers were achieving hits, even penetrations, but many were not resulting in permanent destruction. American maintenance units were recovering tanks that German crews believed destroyed, repairing them, and returning them to the fight. The mathematical model German staff used to calculate enemy strength based on permanent losses from ammunition fires had become obsolete. Major General Maurice Rose's 3rd Armored Division spearheaded the assault with approximately 200 enhanced Shermans. In 7 days of intense combat, the division advanced 100 miles, engaged in dozens of battles, and maintained operational momentum despite German counterattacks specifically designed to decimate American armor. The German response, Operation Lüttich, the Morton counteroffensive, launched on August 7th with 4 panzer divisions. aimed to sever American spearheads. The plan assumed American armored units would be exhausted and depleted following their rapid advance. German intelligence estimated American tank strength at 60% of actual numbers, completely overlooking the recovered and repaired Shermans that the modification had preserved. The 30th Infantry Division's stand at Mortain, supported by tank battalions equipped with modified Shermans, shattered the German offensive power. The 743rd Tank Battalion absorbed repeated assaults from SS and Wehrmacht panzer units. Despite suffering numerous penetrations, the battalion maintained cohesion and combat effectiveness throughout the six-day engagement. The Battle of Aricourt in September 1944 provided history's clearest demonstration of this new reality. When the 113th Panzer Brigade attacked American positions on September 19th, they anticipated achieving tactical surprise and destroying American armor through superior German gunnery. The initial German assault registered numerous hits on Shermans of the 4th Armored Division. Panthers and Panzer IVs reported multiple penetrations on American tanks at favorable ranges, but the American response defied all expectations. Instead of withdrawing with crippling losses, the 4th Armored counterattacked with unexpected ferocity. The statistics tell the story. The 4th Armored Division suffered 151 Sherman losses during the Aricourt battles, but of these, only 41 were complete write-offs. The remaining 110 were repaired and returned to service, most within a week. German intelligence, counting all 151 as permanent losses, calculated that the 4th Armored should have been combat ineffective. Instead, it maintained offensive operations throughout. General Patton's initial skepticism regarding 76mm Shermans reversed entirely after Aricourt. The Third Army subsequently accepted only 76mm armed wet-stowage variants, recognizing that enhanced firepower, combined with improved survivability, created a superior combat capability. As autumn of 1944 progressed, second-generation improved Shermans began entering combat. The M4A3E8, Torsis Easy 8, incorporated lessons learned, featuring an improved suspension, wider tracks for enhanced mobility despite the added weight, and refined ammunition storage with better crew accessibility. These tanks began reaching frontline units in October 1944. The specialized assault variant, the M4A3E2 Jumbo, incorporated wet stowage from its initial production, commencing in June 1944. With frontal armor reaching 4 inches and turret armor up to 6 inches, the Jumbo could absorb tremendous punishment. Combined with its ammunition protection, these tanks achieved survival rates that utterly bewildered German observers. By November 1944, the First Army fielded 105 M4A3E2 Jumbos across various tank battalions. The Third Army had 90 Jumbos deployed in 6 battalions. These tanks spearheaded assaults on fortified positions, absorbing punishment that would have annihilated entire companies of earlier Shermans. Operation Watch on the Rhine, Germany's final desperate offensive in the West, launched on December 16, 1944, was predicated on flawed intelligence regarding American armored capabilities. German planning assumed American tank losses would follow patterns established in 1943. The offensive's success hinged on the rapid destruction of American armored reserves. German planners calculated that concentrated panzer attacks would systematically eliminate American tank units. These calculations were based on traditional Sherman vulnerability. When protected, Sherman survived at unexpected rates. The operational timeline collapsed. SS Obersturmbannführer Joachim Peiper's KG Group, spearheading the 1st SS Panzer Division's assault, encountered this stark reality near Stoumont on December 19th. His Panthers achieved numerous penetrations on Shermans of the 743rd Tank Battalion at close range. Yet, American resistance persisted. In post-war interrogations, Peiper expressed profound frustration that American tanks continued to fight after sustaining hits that should have rendered them destroyed. The 761st Tank Battalion, the African-American Black Panthers, demonstrated these advantages throughout their 183 days of continuous combat, including engagements in the Ardennes. Staff Sergeant Reuben Rivers, posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, exemplified the survivability afforded by the new system. His tank absorbed 2 direct hits on November 19th that penetrated the hull, but crucially failed to ignite the ammunition. Rivers continued to fight despite his wounds, his crew surviving hits that would have annihilated them all in earlier Sherman models. As 1945 dawned, German forces were capturing intact wet-stowage Shermans with increasing frequency. Operation Nordwind resulted in the capture of numerous M4A3E8 Sherman tanks from the 43rd Tank Battalion near Hildesheim. In January, German crews operated these captured vehicles for several days, without recognizing the significance of the liquid-filled ammunition containers. The Wehrmacht's Technical Intelligence Branch had effectively ceased functioning by early 1945. The few remaining technical specialists focused on desperate wonder weapon projects rather than analyzing enemy equipment. Even if frontline troops had recognized the modification's significance, no mechanism existed to process and disseminate this crucial intelligence. The U.S. Army's Operations Research Office, in their post-war study ORO-T-117, meticulously documented this transformation. Pre-modification, Shermans burned in 60 to 80% of penetrating hits. Wet stowage variants ignited in only 10 to 15% of cases. This reduction effectively multiplied American armored effectiveness on an invisible scale. A tank battalion with 50 Shermans suffering 30 penetrating hits would have lost 18 to 24 tanks to fire with dry storage. With wet stowage, only 3 to 5 would burn, leaving 25 to 27 repairable. The battalion maintained combat effectiveness instead of requiring complete reconstitution. Across the entire European theater, this mathematical advantage accumulated strategically. Conservative estimates suggest the modification prevented catastrophic fires in at least 1,000 tanks, representing 5,000 trained crew members saved and dozens of battalions maintaining combat effectiveness. German planning never incorporated these critical realities. Every operational plan utilized obsolete data regarding Sherman vulnerability. This systematic error, repeated across thousands of engagements, contributed directly to Germany's eventual defeat. Post-war interrogations and memoirs unequivocally confirm this intelligence void. Not a single German account from the war years mentions any recognition of this modification. Otto Carius, who destroyed over 150 enemy tanks, wrote extensively about his combat experiences against Shermans in Tigers in the Mud, without any mention of unusual fire resistance. Ernst Barkmann's account of his famous defensive stand never details surprise at Sherman's surviving hits. Unit histories compiled by veteran associations provide further corroborating evidence. The histories of Panzer Lehr, 2nd SS Panzer, and the 116th Panzer Division contain no acknowledgement of improved Sherman survivability. These are not official histories subject to censorship, but private recollections shared among comrades. The wet stowage intelligence failure stands as one of the most complete intelligence breakdowns in modern warfare. Multiple factors contributed to this critical blind spot. German technical evaluation of Sherman tanks occurred using specimens captured before the modification was implemented. By the time wet stowage Shermans entered combat, German forces had transitioned to defensive operations, offering limited opportunities for systematic technical intelligence collection. Organizational dysfunction prevented field observations from reaching the relevant analysts. German technical intelligence was fragmented among multiple competing agencies with poor interagency information sharing protocols. Resource constraints meant captured vehicles were immediately pressed into service rather than undergoing thorough evaluation. Cultural factors, including an ingrained overconfidence in German technical superiority, diminished the perceived need for detailed enemy equipment analysis. The modification's inherent invisibility proved crucial. It did not alter the Sherman's external appearance, did not necessitate new tactics, and did not announce its presence. German intelligence, actively seeking dramatic changes, completely missed the subtle but profound revolution occurring within the American tanks. The narrative surrounding the wet stowage system offers profound and lasting wisdom. Staying current with technical knowledge is an imperative, demanding constant reevaluation. The adversary studied yesterday may bear little resemblance to the threat encountered today. Advancements do not require a complete overhaul to achieve significant impact. Incremental enhancements that address distinct challenges can often yield greater worth than sweeping redesigns. For military engineers, this particular alteration serves as a prime illustration of sound design principles. First, pinpoint the precise issue. Second, devise a workable remedy. Third, deploy it across the entire production run. An improvement ready for immediate deployment can often outweigh an ideal solution that necessitates years of development. Intelligence agencies can glean cautionary insights regarding analytical blind spots. A capability of the enemy that appears unattainable might very well be the very one that proves decisive in combat, where information is as critical as ordnance. A lapse in intelligence can be as devastating as a mechanical breakdown. The wet-stowage ammunition system for the Sherman tank slashed the likelihood of catastrophic fires by 75%, thereby preserving thousands of Allied lives. Nevertheless, its most significant triumph lay in its complete anonymity to German forces throughout the crucial final year of the Second World War. From its introduction in January of 1944 until the conflict's conclusion in May of 1945, every major American armored offensive utilized considerable numbers of these enhanced Shermans. German units encountered them from Operation Cobra right through the final defensive stands within the Reich, capturing and even operating hundreds without ever discerning their fundamental improvement. American engineers conceived of this system with the primary goal of safeguarding personnel, not of misleading adversaries. However, its unnoticed presence by German intelligence amplified its effectiveness to an immeasurable degree. This modification underscored the validity of the American approach to design. Practical solutions implemented swiftly demonstrated superiority over the German propensity for seeking absolute technical perfection. History notes wet stowage as a pivotal technical enhancement that contributed to the Allied victory in the Second World War. More accurately, it should be recognized as the alteration that secured triumph by remaining unseen, achieving victory through the enemy's lack of awareness as much as through American ingenuity. German tank crews found themselves confronting the wrong adversary, employing outdated strategies based on flawed assumptions, and ultimately, they were defeated. The modification did more than just protect American lives. It hastened the war's end by sustaining American armored strength at levels that accelerated Germany's collapse. Within this concealed advantage, magnified across a multitude of engagements, lies one of the Second World War's most extraordinary yet obscure accounts. A straightforward alteration that fundamentally reshaped the conflict, while remaining invisible to those who most critically needed to perceive it.